Welcome to another installment of Guitar for Lazy People. This lesson will be based on 7th Chord Inversions, which I showed on my blog lessons. You can find the chord shapes which I will use in my blog somewhere on the screen. Basically today I just want to play around a little with these shapes and see what you can come up with if you sometimes add a passing tone. I will start with a standard 2-5-1 in D major. So we have a D major chord. We'll have a E minor 7. This is the 2 chord. We have a dominant A7, which is the 5 chord, and as I said, D major is the 1 chord. So, if we look at the first movement from the 2 to the 5, and now instead of using this 5 chord, which is perfectly okay, we use an inversion, and we will use this one. It's based on the 5th bass note. Have a look at this movement from the 2 to the 5, you will notice that 2 notes are not moving, which are the root of the 2 chord. Becomes the 5 of the 5th of the 5 chord, and the 3rd of the 2 chord becomes the 7th of the 5 chord. The only notes which are moving are the ones in the middle. And this one, which is the 7th of the 2 chord, becomes the 3rd moves down a half step to the 3rd of the 5 chord, and the 5th of the 2 chord moves down a whole step to become the root of the 5 chord. So now we have 2 notes which aren't moving, 1 note going down a half step, which is the closest possible movement, and 1 note going down a whole step. So here we could add, instead of playing the whole step, we could add a half step in between, going from the 5th to the lowered 5th, and then going to the A, which is the root of the 5 chord. So if we do this with the chords, we have a 2, we lower the 5, the 5th, and then we go to the 5 chord. So we have added 1 chord between the 2 and 5 just by adding a passing tone. And it fits in there quite well, I think. At least I like it. So we can do the same thing with the 5 going to the 1. And if you look at the voices, how they move, you will notice again that we have this time the middle 2 voices remain the same. And the outer 2 voices move. And we have the half step here and a whole step here. So we can do the same trick. We add a half step in between this whole step, and what we get is 5 chord with the half step movement and the 1. So if we put these together, we get 2 with a passing tone, 5 with a passing tone, and a 1. So we have added 2 chords which have notes which are not in D major, but as the movements are very close, it still sounds good. And what you have to do if you try things like that, it's in the end the last judge are your ears. If you think it sounds okay, then it's okay to play it. I want to point out that here you can see an advantage of using the inversions for the chord. For example, if we would have played the 2 chord 5, like this, you wouldn't really see how the voices change, because you would have these movements here, these movements. So it isn't so obvious which voices don't move and which move. But by using the inversions, the closest inversion possible, it's quite obvious. Yeah, that's the first example. Another example, now we're going from the 1 chord back to the 2 chord, from D major to E minor. And let's see what we can move there, what we can add as a passing tone. And this time I'll use for the 2 chord an inversion based on the 7th, which is here, the D. And the inversion looks like this. As I said, you can find the chord shapes on my blog, Guitar for Lazy People, same name as the series here. Okay, we have a E minor 7 based on the 7th here, and we have the D major 7 here. Again, we see that this note here, the D, doesn't move, it stays the same. And we move these 3 notes here, and they each go down a whole step. So we can add a half step movement in between those 2 chords. We move the 3 notes here down a half step, and then down again to the inversion of the 2 chord. All together it sounds like this. I'll just add it, and then 1 chord at the end. So you can see it's quite a smooth transition, even though these 3 notes here, which we added, the passing tones, all these notes are not included in the D major scale. So for themselves they can sound quite outside, but as it's a half step movement, it sounds quite smooth. So that's what I wanted to show you, and what you can do is take any chord sequence you like, you're practicing, you're playing, and have a look at the voices, how you can lead from one chord to another. And maybe you will see that there are some, you can add a half step here or a whole step, and maybe add a new chord or find out something interesting by watching how the voices move. And most important thing, have fun experimenting and make music. Okay, that's for today, and see you next time. Bye.